Well, this has been a great conference. Thanks to LC for another wonderful conference. And my conference has been just been made because I met a nice gentleman in the back here from Dakota Plains Legal Services in South Dakota, where my mom is a paralegal and he knows my mom. So that's the first time I've had that before. So very cool.
Awesome.
All right, well, let's get started. All right, my name is Joseph Schieffer. I'm the CEO at A2J Tech, and I'll be the moderator for the panel today. And we have here Jeff Porter, the Senior Director of Channel Partnerships at Clio, Tamison Reno, the Staff Product Designer at Clio, and Ashley Graham, the Managing Attorney of the Brief Services Unit at Neighborhood Legal Services Program of Washington, D.C. And we have in the crowd also, we have Monique from Neighborhood Legal Services Program of Washington, D.C. All right, here's our agenda for the session. We'll provide a project background, talk about the company Clio, then talk about what we're building, Clio for Legal Services, and then Ashley will talk about how her program uses Clio today, and then we'll wrap it up and do a Q&A. Okay, let's start with the project background. I always find these really interesting. They're not the normal, how you think about, let's do this project. It's usually a very windy road to get to these projects. So the situation we had with the impetus for this project is I did a TIG planning project for Legal Aid of Wyoming. And one of the things that we recognized they needed was a new case management system. So in that process, they sought out 3 proposals. And they got 3 proposals and they sent them to me. And they said, okay, Joseph, we want you to review them, maybe ask questions to these providers, and then give us a recommendation on which one we should choose. And I reviewed all 3, and I wasn't comfortable with any of them. And I knew as their technology services provider that if that system didn't work out or they had questions or issues, it was going to come to me. So I was like, let me see if I can get something better that'd be a better fit for you. So some findings of evaluating those proposals is that, so they had about 30 people. And so the implementation costs were somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000 or more for an organization of 30 people. And that didn't feel right to me. And then the timeline for implementation would be 6 months or longer. Again, didn't feel good. Some of the systems didn't have integrations or APIs to work with. And we use a number of systems. And when we do projects for organizations, we like to integrate things together. So if it doesn't have those open APIs, that's a problem. And then also we found that many of the systems, they don't have regular business hours support where you can just call if you have an issue or a question. And so me being their technology service provider, maybe a little selfishly, I was like, yeah, I want how you have a case management system that if you have an issue, you can call them. And those systems didn't have that. So what I did is I was like, okay, let me think outside the box a bit here. And let's see what are the best case management systems that private practice are using. And can one of those potentially work? And maybe it doesn't have all the features yet that you would need for legal aid, but if it has open APIs and integrations, maybe we can build some of those things that legal aid needs to make the system work. And then you have something that's more affordable. It's from a larger company that has really good cybersecurity, has open integrations, APIs, customer support, etc. So that's what started this project. And then we explored, so we contacted Clio. We'll get into who Clio is next. And we said, we're really thinking about maybe something that's not the traditional legal aid case management systems for this situation. Would you be willing to explore this? And they were. So we did see a big opportunity for innovation. And then also, I think as a community, we've seen a number of case management systems kind of slowly not upgrade their systems and so forth. So the likes of PICA, KEMS, et cetera. Understandably so, they're more end-of-life type systems. So we thought it was a good timing for maybe another player to come into the ecosystem of providers. Also, and just a few words from me, I originally learned about Clio and what they do and the heart of their company when their CEO, Jack Newton, was on the board of the Florida Justice Technology Center. If you haven't heard of it, the Florida Justice Technology Center was similar to a legal aid organization in Florida, but they just did the tech parts. So like your statewide website and your statewide pro bono net, Florida advocate site, things like that. And we did some presentations, and I think Sam here, Sam and I actually, we talked to Jack after our meeting with the board and said, yeah, like would Clio be interested in serving legal aid? And Jack was like, maybe, and then since that time, I think Jack is on the board of Pro Bono Net, and so Clio's done a number of things to essentially improve access to justice. So we thought also they were a good partner in terms of mission and value. Okay, so now things are starting to come together, and we're like, all right, maybe this could be a good TIG project. And so we explored it with Legal Aid Wyoming. Legal Aid Wyoming ultimately chose to go with a different case management system. And part of that was because their funder wanted them to have a specific one. That was the same one they're on. So we talked to the TIG team, and thanks David and team, and said, would there be another organization that's potentially in the transition to a new case management system that wants to innovate and try a new platform and do little enhancements on that platform that ultimately could be better for everybody? And fortunately, Ashley and team were up for the innovation and Karen hit the call. So I really appreciate Karen for the legal services program when we say, okay, this is not going to be like a perfect scenario. Like it's going to be innovation. Innovation is hard, and here are the things you didn't expect and so forth. But if you want to innovate, we have an opportunity. And they said, yeah. So with that, we now have a project. And so now I want to pass over to Jeff to talk about it.
All right.
Everyone hear me okay?
Good morning. Thanks for making it out 8:30. We were excited about this session. We knew it would be highly attended. Only the passionate would come. But
That's the best.
yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone. I'm just actually curious. How many people here have heard about Clio before this session? Okay, so all right, that's cool. So Joseph introduced me, but I've been the GM of mid-market at Clio, which is any organization with 20 or more employees. I currently run the channel program there, so we're a partner ecosystem, and then I also tend to get involved with like new markets or things that we don't fully understand. And so, about 2 years ago, Joseph inquired about Clio, and so we spent a bunch of time in learning about Clio and me learning about legal aid. And so I'd actually love to just say thank you for your curiosity and for the LSC for the grant via LSP and for being the first, because no one really wanted to be the first. There was lots of sort of half hand raisers, but we appreciate that. So anyway, for those that maybe aren't fully up to speed on Clio, so we've been around for 14 years. We've grown up serving private practice. And so today we've got about 37,000 firms or organizations that use Clio on a daily basis. We're over 900 employees. We've done all the work to be bar approved. And I think our last public valuation was 1.6 billion. So that's just a little bit about where we are as a business. And so our clients think of us as kind of their system of record. So everything from managing their intake to their case management, their document management, ability to automate a bunch of their processes, where they communicate with their clients via or integrating with email or their client portal, or recently text messaging, ability to do signatures. And then we know reporting is so important to our clients and also to the folks here. Dave's here from my firm Data, who helps us with our LSC reporting. So anyway, that's at a very high level, Clio as a platform. So it's funny, I hear Jack's involvement from different places all the time. I often are not aware of that, but this is Clio's mission statement. This is literally what's written on the wall in headquarters in Vancouver, British Columbia, to transform the legal experience for all. And so when I started learning more about the market that you guys serve and the people that you serve, to me, nothing moves the all like driving efficiencies within the legal aid space. And so it's been a really fun project to work on for the last couple of years. And so I basically did some high-level analysis with the helps of these folks to understand what was out there in the market today, because it takes engineering investment and product investment, and Tamison's going to talk about how the sausage is made. You probably don't like that term, do you? No, really? Okay.
You gotta find a better one.
Yeah, I'll get a better one. All right. So we'll talk about that, but it's I think our head of product was his expression was, it's not like getting married. You can get unmarried, but this is like having children. Like as soon as you start to serve a market, you're in it forever. And so we really wanted to understand what options were available for the legal aid space, and try to figure out, do we think we can help enough to justify these investments and to help. And so high level, I think, and Joseph, you talked to a few of these, but certainly like high startup costs seem to be a barrier. A lot of the systems were on premise or have been adapted from an on-premise solution. Clio is a cloud-based case management system, has been from day one. Some of the other systems just looked a little bit outdated, and that impacts usability and ability to ramp people quickly, and adoption, which impacts reporting accuracy and so on. Communication with clients seem to be siloed. Inability to automate a bunch of processes. So a lot of our clients have automated so much that they really have streamlined private practice firms. So can that be translated? And then Clio's got 100 and something engineers. And so we've got a team just on platform that are just building APIs. And we've got, I think, 220 companies that have built integrations to Clio to try to make your systems work together and drive efficiencies that way. So at the end of it, we I still remember Jack's statement, which was, I don't see how we can be Clio with our mission statement and not serve this market. And so we've been in for the last 2 years and trying to develop some features, which Tamison will speak to in a moment. And so what does this mean for this market? For me, we know change is hard. We know change is costly. We know change can be disruptive. But we do believe that there's an opportunity to help you folks. And so some of the things that I think our clients really value with Clio, I think we've got a 99% renewal rate. And I think the top 3 reasons for quitting Clio is retirement, merging with another firm, and death. So, those are hard to overcome sometimes. But so I mentioned, so a lot of our clients have used the cloud, work from anywhere, the mobile, very mobile friendly. So some of our clients actually only use their phone. They use Clio on their phone only. And so ultimately, can we automate processes and help drive efficiencies?
And when you say on your phone, can you say just a few words about the mobile app?
Yes. So basically, one thing is Clio's been built for mobile as opposed to like adapting your cloud product to work on mobile. And you can manage your cases, you manage your time, you can collaborate with clients, edit things, e-signature. What else?
That covers it. Just
Okay.
the idea that you can do all the things you normally would do on a PC from a mobile app on your phone. It's
Yep.
pretty cool.
Yep. And so abilities, hopefully, to drive efficiencies within the orgs. A big part of what Clio does is provide a consumer experience as well. So the end user, and so making that easy to collaborate with those folks. Everything's tied together with your email. I know Ashley is going to get into a little bit of that, but ultimately we want that as slick of an experience for the end user as possible. One of the things that's important with mobile is we know that your client's computer is often their phone, and so making that easy to use is important. We know that. Go ahead. No, out of the box reporting, and then I mentioned MyFirm Data. So just trying to get everybody to adopt the platform, and so that data is actually accurate. Dashboard, easy reporting. We know that reporting is a huge time drain for you all, and so I know Tamison's going to talk a little bit about that also. And then lastly, like our goal is really to make your people's lives easy. And if you can drive it, some efficiencies across the board, then you serve your clients, and that helps us transform the legal experience for all. So it's really that win-win. That's it. The last slide is really just to tip our cards a little bit. I stole this from our head of product and engineering's presentation with our kickoff we had last week. But we grew up in private practice, and really we were in case management or legal practice management. But our mission is really to be that operating system for legal, and to really engage in every meaningful transaction that happens within the legal space. So private practice, legal aid, in-house counsel, bar associations, the courts, and so on. We want to try to optimize the entire industry. And so we're here to help. And, if you want to just explore, happy to have those conversations.
Cool. I'm going to say a few words here, Jeff. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So I just want to, now we have this project. We've got Clio all in. Appreciate the sentiment from Jack that how can we be Clio if we're not going to serve the legal aid market. All right. So I just want to clarify a few project roles here. We have Neighborhood Legal Services Program. Again, we're so thankful. And if you've heard some of our other talks, what really drives our, in a sense, projects innovation is when someone says, we need this thing that currently isn't available. So NLSP and Ashley and team brought that of like, we need a new case management system, and we're not seeing a really good option. So they provided subject matter expertise and feedback and testing and a lot of opinions, and here's how we want things done throughout the process. And then Clio, which Tamison is going to get into, did a lot of research, concept design, feature development, and then our team, and particularly Mauricio, thank you, sir, provided the project management, and then we developed the intake system and the integration. So we took Clio and said, okay, here's all things it can do, and whatever we're missing out on, we got to build or find another vendor or something to integrate with. And so thanks, Dave, also for being here. We wanted a really nice reporting suite, and so there was a company that already provided really robust reporting that integrates with Clio. And so my firm Data, when we told them about this project and the opportunity to serve legal aid organizations, Dave and his co-founder were all in. So we appreciate you being here as well. All right, and now I'm really excited to pass this over to really what I consider like the stars of the show, which is Tamison at Clio and Ashley at NLSP. So Tamison, you got it.
I do. So Clio has a really large product development and design team. But more importantly, we have a team that is dedicated just to this project. So we have four developers, a product manager, a development manager, and a designer, who is me. So I've been a product designer for, I'm going to age myself now, around 15 years. But the last 6 years, I've been really focused more on in-depth user research. So I want to speak to you folks about the research we conducted that informs the product development at Clio. So along with accessibility, so research and accessibility together are really what creates that human-centric product experience. So they're both equally important. And so you might be thinking, but Clio was built for private for-profit firms with focus on billing their clients. So how would this work for us? So yes, Clio was originally built for private practice firms with a focus on billing. So that's why this research was really important. We needed to really understand the space that you folks were in, the problems that you had, the problems to be solved, and what you really needed from us to be successful in this space. So we needed to learn what the right thing to build was, and then we needed to test how to build that. And so we use all this research to inform product development towards the functionality that we need to add into Clio to support you. So we approached the research really in 3 phases, and we actually had 7 months of dedicated user research before we even started any product development. And so I'll talk through these phases in more detail, but we did an initial large exploratory research study. Then we went into scenarios, concept testing, design, looking at accessibility. And we're now in our 3rd phase with NLSP's pilot, which is sort of testing, building, testing, and then iterating on that. So the first phase was our initial exploratory research. So this research we conduct before we even get around to drawing up any designs. So it's broader, it's higher level. It's really aiming to build up like a holistic understanding of the space, the needs of you folks in this space, and the ways in which you work today. And we do this so that we can understand the high-level problems that we need to solve. So this first study, we had 17 different legal services organizations across a 4-month research study. We had 33 participants that Karen Newton-Cole very kindly recruited for us. And we conducted 14 hours of one-on-one in-depth research interviews and had 7 hours of focus group sessions. We also conducted this with a mix of folks. So we had LSC and non-LSC funded organizations and rural and urban locations. We have folks using a variety of different case management systems, and we also included representatives from data analytics and the DC Bar Foundation. So you might be wondering, like, why such a large representation? Why is this so important? And so it's really crucial to get a wide range of input from folks from multiple sources and organizations, because we need to know that we're getting a well-balanced perspective. We need really different inputs, and this variety is what sets the groundwork to ensure we're going to build a product that works for everybody. And it needs the flexibility to work in multiple ways. So in order to build a system that truly works for everyone, you need to build up an understanding way beyond the specifics of like just what is, I need this feature to do this. We need to really build up an understanding of like, how do you work? So what does, and I realize this, I started the research, what does a not so typical day look like for you folks? How are you staying organized? What tools do you use to do your job? So we also need to understand what's not working for you today. So what would make your jobs and life easier? So what are you missing from your current solutions? And where are you struggling? And what workarounds and other tools are you having to implement in order to get your job done? So I wanted to really know what other applications and non-digital tools you incorporate to get your job done, how that works for you, and how we can improve upon it. So I wanted to build up a holistic picture of your day-to-day work before digging into any of the specifics of the functionality that you folks might need. So we then did start exploring more topics in detail. So we dug into these detailed areas after we built up that broader picture and that holistic understanding of your day-to-day work. So I wanted a solid understanding of your high-level needs in these key areas to see what we had in Clio already that would support you and what we didn't have. So we needed to understand where our missing pieces were. And during this study, I think David Ramirez, you saw this massive virtual wall of like, we used to do this in person pre-COVID, but post-COVID, it's all digital, like thousands and thousands of sticky notes across this massive virtual wall from these 21 hours of interviews. And we built that up and shared that with our development team so they could start to really understand what you folks need, like how you need to work. And they can refer back to that constantly through the development process. We did have an assumption coming into this. We have a billing and accounts in Clio. There was a pre-assumption that, hey, maybe we could leverage trust accounting, and maybe trust accounting could work for grants. And actually, after meeting with you folks and talking with it, I realized that wasn't going to scale long term. And if we wanted this product to be successful, we needed to build a new product area called grants, have a dedicated grants model, and have that be just for the legal aid product, and have that be totally separate. So after building up this high-level understanding, we went into phase 2, which is scenario and concept design testing. So we do this early in the process, and this is ensuring that we're building the right thing and that we can make adjustments early and quickly before we begin a more costly development process. So we wanted to validate and refine use cases, and these can be thought of as real-world scenarios about something you'd like to do when you're using Clio. And this is where we also began thinking about accessibility needs of these pieces. And when I talk about accessibility, I'll talk in more about what I mean, but guiding principles really of perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So for this study, we had 5 legal services organizations over 3 months. We had 8 different participants, and we had 10 hours of one-on-one in-depth interviews. So we collected feedback on what was and wasn't working about these early stage concepts. And the primary focus of this was grants management and dashboards, as these are the pieces we're going to build natively into Clio. So I'm now going to speak about a few of the areas we touched on during the concept testing and highlight just a few of the concept screens in order with the corresponding scenarios. So the first one was really understanding this new grants product area. And this was going to be one of the foundational building blocks for grants management in Clio. So quite simply, you need to be able to put your grant in, you need to add a funding source. If you're then going to be able to allocate time, monitor your deliverables, and then future, this is where grant financials and grant spend down will go. With this, we also realized in legal services product, we needed to remove billing and accounts. That wasn't relevant for you folks, and the knock-on workflows of that showed up a lot of confusion for people in the product. And so when we started looking at this new area, I'm going to speak first about this came about the accessibility principle of perceivable. So you might have heard of this as responsive design. And so what exactly is responsive design when you hear about it? And that's really meaning that when you're using a product, that product can adapt to your screen size, how you're working, what device you might be on. So if you're starting your work on a desktop and then you're moving to a tablet and you're opening that application up, you want to make sure that the application is responding and you're actually able to see everything on the screen. And so knock-on effect of this not working. If you look at these two screenshots here, you'll see a couple of really crucial elements, like a create new and a new grant button sitting up on the top right. If we resize a screen and we come down to a tablet and that content doesn't resize with you, you're losing crucial elements off your screen. So when those are cut off, I don't know if you've had an application where you've suddenly lost a button and then you're scrolling right and you're trying to find it. And you're scrolling left to get back to what you were doing. And the knock-on effect of that, as well as being a confusing user experience, it also ends up being more time consuming. So you're then spending longer in an application than you should be doing. So the next piece we looked at, we were testing the concept of how you would capture time to grants. And so this brought about the differing understanding of timekeeping to financial mental models. So in private practice, as in Clio what it was, you have a time entry dialog, you put in your time, there's a required hourly billing rate, those are tied together. But that doesn't really accommodate how you folks work. So we needed to understand how we could decouple time from money. And previously, hourly rate had been a required field in Clio. So we needed to actually decouple that. I mean, you could just capture time to your grants. And we also tested some legal services specific dashboards. Ashley will speak in these in more detail, but gives you the ability to capture your time towards your grants in an easy visual format with reporting and export capabilities. And that brings me to chat about the next accessibility principle, again, of perceivable, but this one about being distinguishable user interface. So I don't know if you've heard words like when people talk about accessibility, so color blindness and visual impairment. And this is actually a good example of showing why this is so important to do. So the screenshots here this is the dashboard we were looking at, and then the screenshots behind show a visual of how you would see that dashboard with every single different type of color blindness or visual impairment, or if you see in monochrome. And so we do this for every feature and everything that we develop at Clio. So what we need to ensure is when we're looking at a new chart with new visuals, is this truly accessible for everybody? If someone's coming into this application with different colorblindness, I think Ashley, you mentioned a couple of people in NLSP are actually colorblind. It's extremely common. So you need to ensure that you're building a product that will actually meet everybody's needs. And so it's as simple as, if I have text and it's on a background, is there enough contrast between the foreground and the background? And are those colors different enough that everybody can read them? And so again, it might seem fairly small, but the knock-on effects of this can be quite huge. So sitting in this conference this week, it's been great. I've learned a lot. It's been fascinating. And one thing I've heard a lot is about the sort of needs of your clients, how your clients are more marginalized and how you're having to work in different ways to meet the needs of your clients. But what's been talked about a little less is making sure that products you're using are meeting your needs. And that's really why accessibility is so important. So a knock-on effect for that will be is if we don't solve accessibility well in the products that we're developing for you, you're not going to be able to complete your workflows, or it's going to take you longer. Or if you have visual impairments and you can't see what's going on, you're going to have to ask for help. And then the knock-on effect for that is you're spending a lot of time in our product, which is taking away from time that you could be spending with your clients. So our success metric when we're looking at product development in Clio is how little time can you spend on our product. So how quickly can you get your job done, get everything you need to do, and be out of there again? Because less time spent in Clio is more time spent like helping your clients. And then final piece, I'm just going to chat around testing. So we were testing allocating grants to matters and reviewing open and closed cases under specific grants to make sure that you could track progress towards your grants deliverables. So throughout the concept design process, we were testing and validating designs that created new models in Clio to support your needs. But we also needed to test designs that integrated into Clio's existing functionality, but ensure that we were still supporting your use cases as well. So we took all this testing feedback and moved into our next phase, which is our initial development phase and the pilot that we're actually in now. So we're now in our ongoing third phase, which is an iterative cycle of testing, developing, gathering feedback, iterating, testing, and further development. And this will just be ongoing for us. So the upfront exploratory research ensure that we are fundamentally solving the right problems. And the concept design, usability testing, and the functionality development testing we conduct, it validates that you can complete tests and workflows. But a downside of that is it validates you can complete them, but it's always in a non-natural environment. I can put a usability test in front of you. I can check boxes that you can actually complete that test. But it's not until you start truly using the product and giving us that live feedback of, oh, but I wanted to use it this way, and I wanted to use it this slightly different way in this time. And so we need that feedback layered on top of the usability testing to ensure that we're truly meeting your needs. And so this is the pilot phase that we're in at the moment. And so the approach that we've taken with this, we have NLSP, our One Legal Services Organization. We have an online form for ongoing submission, and we have group meetings where we're gathering their feedback, and then we can iterate on the development of the features we've initially put out. So we had initially developed this personal organization dashboard with the ability to filter on a user, a date range, and review time allocation to grants, and the ability to export that for data reporting. But I got feedback like, okay, well, that's great, but there's nothing I can actually really do with that. What I need to do with that is I need to see I've allocated X amount of time to this grant, but I need to be able to go in and review those individual activities. There might be a mistake. I might want to edit. I might want to make changes. So we then layered in the ability to drill down on that dashboard and deep link into those Clio activities directly from there. So this additional development layer means you can now review, but you can also go in and review in detail, make changes and edits. We'd initially built the ability to associate up to 3 grants to a matter, but it was built in a pretty static way without flexibility. So I pretty quickly got feedback that, well, I need to allocate which grant was a primary or secondary, and I need to be able to reorder those grants, and I only want one of these grants for reporting, and I can't do any of that right now. So we had to go back to the drawing board on this a bit, and we fully redeveloped that based on the feedback. So we now have a drag and drop flexibility to handle those multiple use cases that Ashley's going to talk about a little bit more. And with building that was sort of really when we were looking at the accessibility principle of operable. And with this, I mean keyboard accessible navigation. So can I make this interface work using only my keyboard without a mouse? So you might see from the screenshots, there's a couple of different visual states on here. And that is if I'm tapping around on the keyboard, I'm getting visual states on the interface that show me where I am. And so why this is really important, it's a big development initiative that's sort of ongoing across Clio, but this is putting the building blocks in place towards taking us to the principle of robust. And what that means is, can this interface be read by assistive technologies? If I'm using a screen reader, can I operate Clio using a screen reader? So I'm not going to say we're perfect and we're there yet, but putting those principles in place to take us towards that end goal of being truly accessible for somebody who is using assistive technologies. Final few pieces. So we layered on the ability to donate if a time entry was PAI time, or to capture time from volunteers. This was something we'd had sort of on, like, in the back of our minds, but as soon as NLSP started using it, they let us know just how important it was to be able to capture PAI time and also capture time that volunteers were putting towards Clio. So for capturing volunteer time, we leveraged Clio's existing co-counsel functionality, and then we extended it. So volunteers who are not Clio users can submit time themselves via co-counsel already. That was in place. But maybe more importantly, we reversed that model around. So a Clio user can now submit time on behalf of a volunteer when in Clio. And that's in the instance where, say, a volunteer attorney would just email you a timesheet with here are all my arrows, can you capture them for me? So the additional development layered on the key piece of functionality to robustly capture time in multiple ways. And then the final principle I'm going to talk about around these forms is the accessibility principle of understandable. And this is really when you're using an application and you're looking at a form. Does it have labels and instructions? Does it help me fill in a form? Does it give me instructions? And does it help me gracefully recover if I make an error? So when you open up a form, this one's a fairly simple example, but you can open up a form and you see a whole bunch of blank inputs. There's no guidance. So one thing we try and really work on is what I'm looking at understandable? Can I be guided through a space, and can I complete these tasks quickly and easily? And if I make a mistake, am I given help to recover gracefully from that? So again, this is just really, all of this is coming back to help me work faster and help me work more smoothly so I can spend as little time in Clio as possible. And so what's coming next for us? That's a quick flavor of the research we've been conducting. So we're still in the early stages of product development, but I hope I've given you small insight into the human-centered research approach that we're taking. So we're still focusing on finding out what you need, building responsive design, looking at accessibility, but what's coming next from us? So we're in our pilot phase with NLSP at the moment, and we're continuing our research and product development. We're beginning work shortly on an eligibility calculator that will be housed within Clio Grow. And we're then going to be tackling advanced conflict checking within Clio Grow. That's an optimization on what we have, and we'll also search across Clio Manage. And we'll also be tackling detailed financial grants management within Clio Manage. That's going to allow you to track and manage your grant spend down. But now I'm going to let Ashley talk.
Well, hold on here.
Detail.
Hold on,
Okay.
Tamison. I just got to give a round of applause if you want to join me. So, yeah. So coming into this project, I was concerned, like, how is Clio going to really understand legal aid? And then I remember seeing your mural board of 1,000 Post-it notes. I almost had a tear in my eyes, like, oh, they got it. You know, they did their research. They talked to a lot of people. So Tamis, I just want to say, you know, for me and our team, on behalf of Legal Aid, thanks for all the time you invested in really understanding their needs. So
Absolutely.
great work. All right, let's pass it to Ashley.
Absolutely. Just to reiterate, Tamison has probably received more emails and messages and thoughts from me. And she is truly one of the most graceful and open persons that I've ever worked with. And it's been fantastic. Both her and Mauricio, I got opinions about all this sort of stuff. I've been with legal services for 15 years in an LSC organization. So when it was first approached by LSC saying, hey, do you guys want to join this new project where, it'll be growing and we're going to build something? I'm like, you mean to tell me people want my thoughts on how to build something and they're going to listen? Yes, please. It's been truly fantastic. And they've really taken to heart, what we've thought, help translate our thoughts into things that are beautiful and usable. And it's just been great. So I appreciate Tamison and Jeff and Joseph and Mauricio and everybody. So get that out of the way first. So about us. So we're Neighborhood Legal Services. We are the LSC organization in the District of Columbia. We are a little bit of a small organization compared to a lot of the LSC organizations here. DC is about a 20 square foot radius. I think you can drive from one end to the other. Or 20 by 20. Math is not my thing, sorry. But you can drive from one end to the other within an hour or two. I came from Middle Tennessee, where it would take all day just to drive across my service area. So we are a smaller organization. And so when we started shopping around for case management systems, we were struggling. There were good things. We liked it. We came from a case management system that was very outdated. So everything looked really great for us, but it didn't feel exactly right. So what the goal was when we first started was let's try to build this for everybody, and let's try to build this for organizations to be as modern as possible. I think one thing as legal service attorneys is we're used to dealing with, or we accept dealing with older technologies and things that have been done the way it is for many years. But we deserve, modern technology. Our clients deserve modern technology and representation. So, really taking that to heart when we start the project. So that's where NLSP kind of came in with that mindset when we first started. So we went live with Clio on November 14th, 2022, which quite frankly, thinking about it, that we went from Clio not really having any LSC focused integrations to going live and usable in 2 years is really outstanding, going that far in such short time period. We were down for about a week in our migration where we weren't able to offer services. But we have been live since November 14th, 2022. So just like when a client comes in, we start with intake, started with intake. One of the things that we were concerned with when we came in was, we want to help build these things out and we want to make the best system, but we still want to get off of our old case management system sooner rather than later. So, we didn't necessarily want to wait for the entire thing to be built out in Clio. But the good thing about Clio is it's a free and open API system, which means that if Clio is not able to get something quickly because technology takes time, we have the ability to partner with agencies like H2J to help us build out what we can do in the right now. And intake is one of those examples. So with our intake system, we've been really working with H2J, Mauricio and his team to build out something that is usable and LSC compliant. This is just a couple of screenshots that I'm going to show of what we're using right now. When we started developing it, one of the things that we really wanted to do was to make it onto one page only and the ability to jump around. As y'all know, our clients are not necessarily the most linear in their story and linear in giving information. So we wanted to be able to adapt to their story and have that conversation without saying, no, I know you're telling me about this traumatic experience, but can you give me your address first, please? So we wanted to really, have that ability to be adaptable to our client's conversation. We do keep as much information as possible. What we wanted to do was really delve deep into exactly what is needed right now to make it as an efficient process as possible. This is actually a great example of how we're still in the testing process. I took this screenshot about a week and a half ago, but it's already out of date. We have found in using this system and talking with our intake workers, they wanted to make a field about the client's contact information and whether it was safe to be very prominent. So it was never lost in the shuffle, that it was always a question that was very prominent in the features. So we made a text field right above the case notes that asked for safety information. So it's a great example of that we have something very usable and workable and good, but we're always going to try to make it better. And we're constantly shifting. We also have the information, citizenship, all the things that are required from LSC for the intake process. Same thing with assets, expenses, and incomes. We want it as adaptable to our clients as possible. So whatever their circumstances are, we're able to take that. We don't want to try to do math on the fly. You told us, you get paid every other week. We need that in monthly income. So this is to be as adaptable as possible. This shows the actual calculations after the inputs are put in. What's really cool about this system is it is automatic. There's no put in the information, hit the calculation button. It happens instantaneously, and it's really cool to see, like as you put in the numbers down here populate as it is. So if you're a little bit of a slow typer, you're like, oh, their yearly income is $10. No, you just typed a little slow. So it comes as fast as you type, essentially. Same thing, you have the option to decide whether it's LSC eligible or not, whether or not it works for other grants, things like that. We also worked very hard on a conflict check, a robust conflict check. One of the things that we struggled with our old case management system, it was that it wasn't really adaptable to either client error or our own user error for whatever reason. So if you accidentally inverted letters or in a name, or maybe the client didn't know how to spell the opposing party's name correctly, it really didn't capture that information. So one thing we really worked at was having the separate date of birth and name conflict checks so it can do the difference, or say like maybe you misspelled it, but you can check it in the birthday. Similar with the adverse party. You know, Tamis and I were literally just talking yesterday about, ways to expand that into different ways to have as much a robust conflict check as possible. We also have the ability to add multiple adverse parties. As y'all know, especially in these family law cases, it feels like, we're adding the entire clan sometimes of just adding as many adverse parties as possible. So this allows us to, as many as you need. We also have the ability to filter at the end, whether somebody is accepted into the case, rejected, things like that. One of the things we really struggled with our old case management system, we could do a lot of reports and things on the cases that we opened, but we weren't necessarily tracking information about when cases were rejected and why were the reasons and how many, to have metrics. What this system allows us to do is to not only look at our open cases, but our rejected cases, see what the patterns are. Are we rejecting more people because they're over income or out of our service area, or just that they didn't follow up? The system allows us to capture that. So now we're moving on to what has actually been built into Clio right now. So everything we're talking about from this point, with a few exceptions, are what building on of what Tamison has talked about. So when we think about grant management and staff management, what we really wanted to focus on is report building, flexibility, the dashboard, and making this easier to train our people. Training specifically, with our old case management system, it felt like we had to block off so much time, and there was such a huge learning curve for our people to just get started on their work. So we really wanted to make a system that made sense and we could train easily. So here we are with what we finalized with the Matters overview. This is, if you were to hit the Matters button, this basically shows every case that's been open in LSP right now. Visually, you can easily see what the grants are, how many grants are being reported right now, and get an idea as to what it is on a whole basis. If you were to click on the individual matters, this is what the dashboard would look like. As you can see from the top, it has not only the grants that are listed, it lists if those grants are counted for reporting, not counted for reporting, and the hours that you spent on each specific grant. So it gives a nice visual that way. If you were to edit the grant, edit the matter, you can come to the grant portion, and like Tamison talked about, you have the ability to drag and drop. You have the ability to select, the grants that you're using, grants that you're not. Very, very few LSC attorneys are funded by one specific grant. Most of the time we're 5% this and 12% this and 2.5% this, and I'm being dramatic, but not really. There's a lot of grants that you have, and a lot of times during the life of a case that may change. It might be transferred to another attorney who's on a different grant, or maybe the attorney that was on it is no longer with the organization and has to be transferred, or maybe you got a new grant. This system allows you to easily change that as needed.
I just want to say a few words there. One of the things I love about Ashley is all these nuances. So we're like, all right, so you want to tie, some time to a grant? All right, we can do that, right? And then she's like, well, let me tell you about these 20 different edge cases. So that was so helpful to understand all the nuances and all the complexities.
And like Tamison mentioned, I appreciate that you appreciate my ability to point out how this isn't going to work. I appreciate that. So one of the things that we, like Tamison mentioned, we're in the testing phase. So, the things that we thought, we spent a lot of time beforehand thinking things through, but we're learning, we thought this was going to be this way, but it would be really better if it was like that. I filled out the form that Tamison was talking about last night even, maybe the night before, but recently saying like, this is great, but we can make it better. It goes to show there's always room for improvement for everything. So when it comes to grant reporting, there's really 3 different ways that we're using grant reporting now. And I'm going to kind of go in the level of complexity. So we saw the grant screen, the matter screen before. You're able to filter things at that point. And so that would be good for if you're having a case review with your attorney and you need a list of their open cases, or if you need to see what was open that day by the organization. Very, very simple things, very quick things, not necessarily that you're going to spend a lot of time on, things like that. One of the new features that is built out is matters and grants within Clio. And you're able to select the different custom fields, select things about the grants, and run that report for the Excel spreadsheet. That, I would say, takes care of about 90% of our reporting needs. More the simplistic reports, but it's not quite as robust. And our friend Dave with My Firm Data steps in with about the 10%. Let me tell you, I fangirl about Dave all the time and My Firm Data. Like, they have made my life so much easier with having that API connected to Clio and designed the way we wanted it to, that everybody here at this table wanted it to be able to bring in things to make it more complex, this reporting, and make our lives easier. The GAR is here. We all know it. We all fear it in some ways. So having that ability to not only have one option, but many options really does make our lives easier. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the organizational dashboard that Tamison alluded to. This is the organization as a whole. So what you're able to do is have a visual of the organization at a very specific time. With our old case management system, we did our best. We tried our best. And Kira, plug your ears a little bit, one of our main funders. We kind of guessed in a lot of ways. We did our best to try to, if attorney was funded 50% by one grant and 50% by another, try to allocate their time. But the old joke about lawyers going to law school because they can't do numbers and blood is a true thing. So, having this organizational dashboard and a visual to say, oh, we really are doing it 50-50 or, 51-49. It's tremendous. Or, if we're like, oh, this person's spending a little less time than they should be on a grant, let's up this case. When this case comes through, we can assign it to this grant, has really been valuable. Same thing with the personal dashboard. If you are managing somebody, you can look at their personal way they're spending their time. So very similar to the organization, just with a viewpoint. You can choose under the filter option that you see, you can choose any attorney. So if I wanted to check on myself, if I wanted to check on somebody I'm managing, I'm able to do that. This was what I was talking about a little earlier about the filtering if we wanted to do very basic reports, like how many cases my attorney has open for a case review, how many cases came in that day, things like that. We're able to create filters. A really good thing about the filtering process is the columns, we're able to choose any custom field that essentially exists in the matter. I lost count of how many custom fields we have, but it's 60, 70? 75 custom fields at this point. So the ability to choose any one that I want, great. And you're able to, once you choose those columns, you're able to filter on those. So it's a very handy tool for those, more simplistic things and very fast. Activities filtering. So activities is Clio's word for time entries. We're able to filter by the person, like if I'm managing, if I want to check my own time, see how they attach to the grant. just basically see anything you want for a specific time period has been truly helpful as well. So I'm going to talk about the features as a whole from this point forward for Clio. One of the things we really were concerned about, and this was even before the pandemic started, when we started this search, we want it to be cloud-based. One of the things we really pride ourselves as neighborhood legal services is we're in the neighborhood. So we're doing the outreach in the libraries. If our client has housing conditions, we want to go and see the housing conditions. We want to work where our clients are. And it was really important to us that we can bring our case management system with us. That way we're not writing things down in paper, going to the office, retyping our notes, things like that, and taking up our time. So the ability to work from anywhere was really important to us. Simultaneously compatible with multiple systems. We're not going to our client's home necessarily and say, hey, what's your Wi-Fi password? We want to use our mobile devices to do these things and take care of what we need. Finally, simultaneous app. Basically, I didn't realize how much this would be valuable until we started using this. With our old case management system, if you clicked on a case, it wasn't uncommon for it to be like, someone is in this, you will lose all information if you do anything. Having that simultaneous being able to work and not really have to worry about losing your information has been truly incredible as well. Intuitive case management system for the advocates itself. Our attorneys hated our old case management system. We got complaints all the time because they didn't get it. It felt like it was built for somebody who had technology experience and that was from that world. And the majority of our attorneys are not. They enjoy their phone, but not necessarily about different things. So the ability to really see something and it makes sense the way you need to do it was really important to us. And their daily activities such as timekeeping and note-taking, attaching documents, quick onboarding, these were all really important things that we needed to think about and how we're using it. Recio just helped us with a survey with our clients or with our attorneys to see how the process was. And correct me if I'm wrong, 80% said 5 stars and the remaining said like 3 or 4 of how things are going. So we've really found that our attorneys appreciate the intuitiveness of Clio and the ability to, not spend a lot of time trying to figure things out or do things. I really like what was said about our goal is for you guys to use this less because we want to serve our clients. That's why all legal service attorneys got in this business to begin with. The number one thing that was requested by our attorneys was, can we please text our clients within the case management system? This has been really fantastic for us. As you can see, I made, the top portion is text messages. I looked the other day how many people were using text messaging, how many text messages have gone through, and it's been really high. And what is really great about this feature is that it organizes all the text messages within the case management system very easily. If someone I was supervising wants for me to see them, they can easily tag me as well. So that way it's not going to just them, it's going to me as well. And if I'm a manager, I can, as one of my roles is as watching over the case management system for the whole organization, I can see the organization as a whole to see how people are using it. If maybe I see, this attorney is not really using it, let me check in with them to see if there's any issues with understanding or if they need extra support. So it's really great for that. Same thing with emailing. We can attach our emails. And the good thing is once you attach that one email, all replies are going to go in. There's not going to have to, every time there is a reply, you attach a separate email. So that's been really fantastic. So we've been using Clio for about 2 months. I feel like we've touched the iceberg of all the wonderful features that has been used. Clio for Clients is one that we haven't touched, but we intend to really use at a later date. I think if I were to say what is my absolute favorite, it's probably the Clio support. I have high expectations of everything in life, but I have been blown out of the water when it comes to Clio support. The ability to have them available has been truly tremendous. I'm a millennial. I don't like to talk on the phone if I don't have to. They have a chat feature there that you're able to talk to someone live and to give you answers, send you screenshots, and it is 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So if you come to something at 10 o'clock, you don't want to bother any of your other, coworkers, just a quick chat. They get your answer very quickly.
All friendly Canadians, by the way.
Canadians are so friendly. Oh my gosh, I mean this in the most loving way, but it is you got to find yourself some Canadians to work with. They are truly fantastic.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. They're apologizing to me when I ask for things. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. And then I say sorry more, and then it's just a love fest. What can I say? So that's the way we're using Clio. Like I said, we're barely skimming the surface, and things are changing in a way. If we were to give this presentation 2 months from now, I'm sure there would be some differences because our goal is to make this the best as possible. There's nobody on this panel or that's been working on this project that wants to settle for mediocre or that works. We want to have the best product available because not only do legal service attorneys deserve it, our clients deserve the best that we can give them.
Yeah, Ashley. Ash is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty much.
And one other shout out I want to make sure I make is Monique.
Yes.
Yes, Monique. So she was a project manager for NLSP who, this wouldn't be possible unless she was leading all the efforts from NLSP. So thank you, Monique. All right, let's do some Q&A. Who has our first question?
Back to back.
I'm interested on how Clio Grow and Clio Manage, how you anticipate that working. So it's my understanding that with private firms, these are separate products, and that the firms don't necessarily have to have both. But in legal aid, we have one product that does the intake and the case management. So do you plan to bundle them together for legal aid, or what are you thinking how that's going to go?
We have to repeat the question
Oh,
for the
yeah.
mics. So.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. Okay, the question was about the two different main products from Clio. The case management system is called Clio Manage, and then the intake system, would you call it that? An intake system? Would be Clio Grow. And so given that they're kind of, in a sense, two different products that are integrated, how do we plan to offer that to legal aid, given that they need both in a sense? So Jeff Pameson.
Was that the question? Yeah. Okay.
And so today we're only just starting the product development on the intake calculator in Clio Grow. So if you ask me today, I would say the best option is going to be the integration that A2J have built, the one that Ashley showed that is intake, and that directly integrates into Clio Manage. And that will remain there. That will still always remain as an option. But there's a lot of things that Clio Grow does really well for intake and a lot of ways in which it could be leveraged for legal aid once we have that intake calculator and that advanced conflict searching built into Clio Grow. And Jeff, you might know the percentage on this, but there's a very high percentage of our current Clio customers do just have both of these solutions. I'm a designer, so I'm not going to speak to you about how pricing and packaging might work for this. I know it's different for legal aid than for private practice, but we are continually working on the product development side on the integration between Clio Manage and Clio Grow. So if you're intaking your clients into Clio Grow using an intake calculator, there would be a seamless transfer of that case from Clio Grow into Clio Manage. So there's ongoing product development efforts that are much wider beyond the legal aid space, continually into Clio Grow and that integration.
Yeah, and I think the number is about 30% of our clients use both. You can use them independently. And then just on pricing, Clio offers 50% off for legal aid So if you look at our website for pricing, cut that in half.
And just a word about like the separateness of, right now we have the integration through Airtable for the intake versus Clio. When I heard that, I was like, ugh, I don't know how I like that. It is really not a big deal whatsoever. I have one tab for my Airtable. I have one tab in my Google browser for Clio, and it is truly simply finish the intake, click the button, go to the next browser, voila, it's there. It is. I had the exact same concern. It is not a burden in any way, shape, or form. And I anticipate, we just intend to grow this even more.
Yeah, and one thing that we really appreciate about the Clio system is that we could build any custom integrations that Clio doesn't currently have, and then we can test that with Ashley and others. And then once we get in a really good place, we can say, okay, Clio, build this natively into your system. We tested it out. It works really well. Here are the features. It's already live. We're using it. So it provides a good way to build and test things before you do the development natively in Clio. All right, next question. Sam Harden.
I'll ask you a question. And I'm going to try to talk loud so y'all can hear me. You said that the downtime in switching from case management systems was about a week. Is Clio working on ways to get that switching cost down, given that there's predominantly 2 case management systems used by Legal Aid now besides Clio? Like, how are y'all looking at that?
Yeah. So the question was that it was mentioned that there was about a week of downtime when switching case management systems, and Sam asked if there was something that was being worked on to reduce that amount of time. And so do you want to just talk a little bit about migration, or me too? Okay.
Go ahead.
You want me to? Okay. Another, yeah. And actually you could talk about like why there was downtime and so forth too, but I'll just cover migration a bit broadly. So one of the wonderful things about Clio, it makes me smile so much, is that the migration is free. Okay. So with a lot of systems that I reviewed, there was a really large cost for migrating to a new system, and Clio does it for free. Now, it doesn't do the documents. So if you do have documents tied to your system, that's a little bit different. There is a cost and a third party that does that. But as far as just all your data in your case management system, they do the migration for free. And so I imagine there was some downtime because of your internal, how that works. Do you want to talk about a bit on that, Ashley?
Monique, please correct me if I'm wrong with any of
Yeah.
this. So,
Or Mauricio.
Monique, and what Jeff said, or Joseph said before, of like, this would not have happened without Monique. This would not have happened without Monique. She kept us organized. She kept us motivated. She kept us everything. She kept us together. So, when it came to timetables, my understanding was this was a little bit longer because we were the first and had so many custom fields. I anticipate, from what I understood from the talking with our migration person, that it would not necessarily be that long in the future. But because we were the first, it was a little longer. But the good thing is we took that opportunity to train. We did so much training within that week of having our intakes closed. We literally stopped intake on a Friday, and by Monday we did, I think, 15. Our Monday, November 14th, we did 15 intakes that first day. Our intake workers got it like that because of the training and because we took the time to really, get people up to speed so we can hit the ground running.
I don't think you necessarily have to have downtime.
Yeah.
That was just how they chose to do it and have training and so forth.
Yeah, we still had access to our old case management system. That never went away. It was just a matter of that data needing. We didn't want to have like one data transfer and then have another data transfer with things in the middle. So a lot of it was our choice. We were conservative because we were the first, just to. We wanted to hit the ground running day one.
Double and triple and quadruple check things, make sure they're good.
And one thing I'll add is we have a team that just does migrations. We have a team that just does launch and onboarding, and then we have trainers. And so we work with each org to make sure that we're working with your schedules and how you want to do it.
Yeah, question in the back, David.
I gathered the Clio annual conference is very well thought. I know this because I listen to Bob Ambrosius podcast. He's always there interviewing lots of people, and he makes news material for weeks afterwards. What do your customers get out of the conference, and will that be a resource for your legal aid customers?
Yeah, actually, I meant to speak to that. So I don't know if you can go back to the Clio overview slide. That's actually ClioCon. So I've been to 2 ClioCons live. One was San Diego, and this year was Nashville. And I'm blown away. Actually, I know you're passionate about it as well. I'll let you speak to it. But I think it's known for 2 things. One is the parties are awesome. And so we might try to bring a party here next year. We'll see. And then the other one is speakers. So we pride ourselves on bringing speakers that are just insightful, not necessarily legal specific, but I know a couple years virtually we had Ben Crump, who's George Floyd's attorney, is like so inspiring. And then we had Seth Godin, who's like a famous author, and just spoke to interesting things like his orthopedic surgeon who he could do any joint, and then he decided he liked knees, so he only did knees, and his business shot up. And then he decided he preferred left knees, so he only did left knees. You'd think you're cutting your market in half, but actually, like, he exploded. If you had a left knee problem, he was your guy. And so just like really interesting things in general. But it's also just a ton of fun and really well done. Ashley, what do you think?
Well, hold on here, but
Oh, sorry.
it's free for legal aid, right, or something? Or there's some discount?
Oh, we do that. Yes, that's true. This picture is the conference. We had 3,000 people in Nashville. Jack, our CEO, is on stage. He's a big man. You can't see him, so it gives you some scale perspective. But
Yeah, I still like, oh my gosh, ClioCon, even a few months after. Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's exactly what Jeff was talking about. The speakers were incredible. Basically, we had, if you guys saw Everett Harper, it's like Everett Harper twice a day, every day, having great speakers that way. And it was just a time to connect. I spoke to a lot of different people. Some were in law and some were not, that were just doing interesting things. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but interesting people and people doing innovative things motivate me to do interesting things and innovative things. So it was, they say it was kind of like a cult. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, but it's very much let's bring up the world together in our different ways. So that was truly incredible. And plus they had it at the Grand Ole Opry. I'm a country music girl, and they had all sorts of country music people there. And I was like, ooh. So
we did have a legal aid session too, which was great. Yes.
So if we're a nonprofit or a legal aid and we're interested in using it, like, is that a now thing or is that there's a timeline for that?
Yeah. So we've got dozens of legal aid orgs in the US using it today. We're not calling into them. It's more they're coming to us. And so I think the best process is just to connect, and we'll do a couple calls. We'll provide a demo and be very transparent with what's available now and what's coming. And then it's up to you to gauge, like, okay, I think in your case, Ashley, it was actually better than what you were using already. So it's an improvement.
tremendously.
So we're open to having those conversations now with whomever's interested. Yeah.
And then my other question about like integrations in the meantime is, like I feel like Clio's been vetted, has good digital security. Do we have to vet each of those integrations, or is that automatically kind of pre-vetted?
Joseph, you can speak to the intake, and then
Yeah,
Dave, I don't know if you want to
you'd
speak
want
to the
to. There's over 200 integrations, so I think you'd want to think about it. Now, I would say the organizations that are in your marketplace and do integrations, they all seem business class and secure and that, but you'd still always want to review things. And also, like, if you read the news, you see the biggest companies in the world getting breached and cybersecurity issues all the time. So if I were you, I would review them, but also I would start with knowing that they're probably reputable companies if Clio's listing them in their marketplace.
Yeah, we do vet all the integrations that go onto the app marketplace.
Time? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this final day. Thanks to the team for all of your work. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.